This is TWiT.
So we know, or at least we think we know, that Apple will not ship iPadOS 16 until the iPad comes out. iOS 16 seems pretty well baked. You're using, which beta are you using, Jason? 6?
Oh, wow. Who counts anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it seems pretty well done. You know,
Yeah.
Google did a funny thing. They, after their 6th beta of Android 13, they just pushed it out last week. Oh, everybody's got it. It was like, what? You're not going to wait for the phone? What? But that isn't as big an update, I think. And one of the challenging updates in the new iOS, and I think one of the reasons iPadOS is going to be delayed another month, is Stage Manager. Apple's, this is again Mark Gurman. He's pretty much dominated the show so far. I'll find somebody else. Apple's new iPad multitasking system doesn't cut it. And I have to say, I've been using the public beta of iPadOS 16, and yeah, I'm close to turning it off. Are you leaving it on?
I mean, the beauty is you toggle it on and off, so you use it when you want to, and when it makes sense, and when it's not. I'm using it. You know, it's getting better. It is a huge leap for them. I think it's really smart for them to put it off for a month because. But is a month enough to make it
better?
My understanding is that they are working, very hard on stomping out a lot of bugs, and that every beta is better and changing things, and they're trying to change things and fix things as they go, and that's hard. But they're not like confident that they got it right and it's all fine, right? Like I think that there's a lot of hard work going in, and holding it for 16.1 basically before they do the release is probably a good idea. But I don't agree with Mark. I think that there's work to be done there, but I think Mark he's I don't know, he doesn't like it, and that's
I don't either.
Right,
I'm with him. He says Stage Manager is convoluted and confusing. It's not about the bugs. It's about the design. It's about how it works. You get the sense, he writes, that Apple is striving to do something new and different, a multitasking solution that was nothing like what exists on the Mac today. He gives them kudos for trying, but he says it's kind of janky. I kind of agree. Andy, have you used it yet?
I've used it. I don't have it installed on my primary devices because I only have one Mac and one iPad that can do both of those things. So I've had to sort of depend on the kindness of strangers. I thought it was intriguing. I'm not in the position yet to judge it because it's still in beta. I agree with Jason. I'm very, very happy that they decided to delay it rather than give us either a half of an experience or a full experience that is not fully baked yet. I think they did the same thing with continuity, didn't they? Where they said, okay, we thought we'd have this ready for the major release, but we're going to have that as an update a few months later. And as a result, I have a feature that I rely on every single day as opposed to something that I used a couple of times. It let me down, or it wasn't good enough, and then I simply forgot about it. So yeah, and the other thing, I know that speaking as the person who declared the flat keyboard of the 2016 MacBook to be garbage, that they should never put onto there. There are times when it's kind of okay to be divisive. It's okay to say, look, this is a big, big leap. We think that this is a big, important part of what the iPad has to be. When we're charging potentially $1,500 for people who want a professional level iPad, we feel as though the productivity end of this, being able to juggle between multiple tasks and multiple apps, is not adequate to the potential of the hardware. We have to make this big leap forward. It's okay for them to say that we really believe in this. We're not going to force you to use it if you don't want to use it. Like Jason said, you can turn it off if you hate it. That's fine. And then maybe after 2 more iterations in a couple of years, you'll turn it back on again, and you'll find that they fixed everything you didn't like about it. So all I'm hoping for is that so long as they get the core verbs and nouns of this feature correct, if it feels like that makes sense, that this is where we would be parking active windows and active tasks that are still in process. The simple motion of here's how I'm going to switch between one view and another view. If they get that right, they can build up on it, and that's what I'm hoping that they're doing. And that's why I'm never. What was the famous game developers quote that a bad game is always bad. A late game stops being late as soon as you release it, so you may as well make it late and good.
Very few developers follow that mantra, by the way.
Yeah.
Have you used it, Alex,
late good,
at all?
late good and fired.
No, I'm not. I don't have anything to beta. I just don't have time to beta anything right now. I need it to all work.
Yeah.
And the but I will say that I'm kind of like meh about the idea. Like so it's not like I feel like I'm dying to upgrade so that I can get this to work. I mean, I'm kind of in the world of my iPad works great.
I was fairly happy
how
with
I
the
use
idea
it,
that they'd make the iPad be more power. You know, you get all this power under the hood, make it more, not more like a desktop, but more usable as your only computer.
Yeah.
But I have always, on both Mac and iPad, used workspaces, full screen and workspaces, and I'm very comfortable with switching that way. On the Mac even, you know, swiping to the next one, and that works very well for me. So maybe I'm just not the market.
You're not the target audience because the iPadOS is basically a full screen, split screen kind of view, and what they're trying to do is say, what if you don't want that in a certain circumstance?
Right.
And my issue with Mark Gurman's take on this is that he seems to basically say, nope, next, and as Andy said, it's new. They're trying to do windowing on the iPad. There's no legacy of windowing on the iPad. Like Stage Manager on the Mac, you can use it or not, but like it kind of makes sense because it gets all of the windowing features that the Mac has had for decades. Whereas the iPad, they're also figuring that part out. I am using it right now, using Universal Control attached to my Mac. When you're on a trackpad and a keyboard, it makes a lot of sense. If you put it in that case, if you attach it to an external monitor, there are lots of things they have to work on. The beauty of it is it's a mode. You can shut it off if you don't want to be in that mode. Yeah. I toggle between those modes because there are lots of apps that on my iPad that I would much rather. I spend huge amounts of time on my iPad, and often I want to be in full screen mode, but every now and then I want to have a Twitter window open and a chat window open at the same time, and you can do that now in a way that is it's new and it's different and it's an additive thing, right? What they're not doing is saying, forget the iPad. We're throwing that away. Right. And Stage Manager is the future. That's not what they're saying. They're saying we're going to add another mode for people who want that mode some or all of the time. And I think that it's got a lot of potential. I'm not saying it's all there, but I think it would be foolish to throw it away when they're taking a big swing and it is step one, and then presumably they will not abandon it and will actually iterate on it the next couple of years, because they sometimes abandon stuff.
And I think they take the chances with it, where they took chances with spaces. They created spaces where you could jump from one monitor to another, and after 10 years, I still hate it. So I looked at this like, I wonder if this will be as good as spaces, which I just like. I hate it.
But again, I like the fact that it would be so easy for them to simply say, oh, so obviously we're going to do overlapping windows. Boom, done. Said, let an intern do it on his long weekend, and we got it. That doesn't make sense for a device that is so comprehensively multi-touch as an iPad. I've always said that I thought that Microsoft did a really good job of crafting a new iteration of Windows that makes sense when you have a desktop and you're just interacting via a mouse and a keyboard, and also makes sense when you have a tablet or a convertible. But that's for the iPad to simply say, we are going to introduce a conjecture that is 20, 30 years old at this point, as if it is as relevant today as it was on the Xerox Alto in the late 70s. I'm glad that they are really trying to think something forward. So again, I'm willing to wait for them to get this. If they started off, say, look, we like this idea, we like this mechanism. For now on, for the first iteration, it's going to be a really good app/task switcher, and we're going to be continuing to develop it over the next few years. Oh, and by the way, I was informed by a hopeful person on the line that it's Shigeru Miyamoto who had that line, the famous like and foundational Nintendo game developer who had that line of better to be late and good than on time and always sucking.
Yeah, I think he actually did it, unlike most. I feel like the Stage Manager controls take up way too much space, especially on the iPad, where space is at a premium. And it feels to me very much like Apple's tried, technologies in the past before to make it easier to multitask. What's that thing where you press F5 and the icons go shoot?
Mission control.
Mission control. Does anybody? I mean, I'm sure there's a handful of people that think, "Oh my God, that's the best feature ever."
I use that all the time to show the desktop. You spread your fingers out and it shows you the desktop, or you do a swipe up and it shows you all your windows, so you can find the one you want, even if it's hidden behind other things. This is the thing about all of these kinds of features, right? Is that no user interface nicety for window management or for multitasking is going to be used by 100% of the population. Everything is a little nation unto itself. It's 20% using this feature. And like, I would not be caught dead using full screen on the Mac. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But other people love it. And I don't use spaces because I don't like spaces, but I use those mission control gestures, right? And other people, Leo, are like, why would you ever do that? And what Apple is doing here, that's why I say, Stage Manager is additive, right? It's like, I think Apple realizes we're not getting everybody with this. Let's try something else on the Mac. And also, this is going to be our take on this for the iPad. But remember, they're still letting you not use that mode if you want. You can do split view or full screen, and it works the same way as it always has. So I think that's the challenge is you can't view this as being, Apple has said, forget how you use the iPad. This is how you use it now. They're trying to add another mode. I think they're showing progress. I think it's way more usable than it was in Beta 1. And we'll see where it goes. But it's not for everybody, and it's not going to be. I think it's best. The best place for this thing is on an external display. And how many people are going to use an external display with an iPad? And second best is in one of those keyboard and trackpad cases that they make. And how many people use that? It is a tiny fraction. I do, but most people don't.
Will you use it on your Mac?
As a pure touch, jury's still out on that. I get what they're going for. I am fighting against decades of Mac history on that.
You don't
front,
even need it on your Mac, right?
Well, I mean, I have a 27-inch monitor, so it's not as much. But like on my MacBook Air, I'm interested in the idea of having separate sets that you can switch between, but they're never out of sight and out of mind. I think that there's some possibilities there, but I mean, we'll see. I guess my point is just, it's not for everyone. It's not meant to be for everyone. And if it adds another little part of it, like all of these features that they keep adding are not for everybody. And maybe that's a failing of theirs, but maybe that's just the reality that we all use our computers in different ways.
I feel like this is just another mission control expose. They'll probably leave it in there. Some people, there's a number of people in our chats who love it, along with Jason, will use it. But I don't think it's the revolution in UI that I kind of was interested, and they were pitching it as. I just don't think so. I think it's going to be
but I think Jason sort of side mentioned an interesting point. That it's true that it's very, very useful for people who have an external monitor external display on an iPad. But hey, how many people actually use that? I think this is a way of saying that maybe it's time that you should have a desk that has a display and a Bluetooth keyboard and a Bluetooth mouse on it, and a little tablet stand for your iPad. That once you realize that, gee, maybe I don't have to buy a $2,000, $1,500 laptop. Someone who wasn't going to buy that $2,000, $1,500 laptop anyway, but it will get them to be so in love with how much productivity they can get done with their $800 iPad that it adds value, and it means it's in addition to buying a new iPhone every 2 or 3 years and handing down the previous one to another person in the family. Now that maybe that will bring iPads into that cycle as well.
And certainly, I understand it's a choice that you don't have to make. It doesn't change anything. But Apple is devoting a lot of expertise, brain power, time, promoting to this that they could have done something else with. So you always have to choose what features we're gonna spend time on. And I just can't. I'm not convinced this is the one.
And what I will say, though, is you don't want to put out features and then not promote them, because then no one ever uses them. So if you're going to, the one thing Apple is pretty good at is not killing tons of things. And so they tend to put something out and put a lot of weight behind it because they're going to keep it for a while. Yeah. And so I think that it makes sense for them to push hard. Sure. But I
Look how long they kept widgets.
I'm not sold, but we'll see.
I mean, right?
Exactly.
I believe it. And Apple has a long, and as does any tech company, history of introducing stuff nobody was interested in, and they just kind of dribble along. The question really is only is Stage Manager that, or is it a revolution in the way people use iPads?
Yeah,
We'll
it doesn't
see.
have to be a
We'll find
revolution. So long as it adds value, it'll justify the expense.
I mean, there is a little portion of the iPad user base that is the people who want pro features from the iPad, and I'm one of them. And we have been complaining for a long time about this not being there. This is for us, and it's not for everybody. But it's like part of me wants to say, "Hey, Leo, my turn." I want this feature. It's
I'm with you.
my time.
I
now.
want to use it in a pro way too, and I am using it as you are as a second monitor on my Mac. I wish it were a little. It's still a little sticky to get the mouse over there and use it, but it's nice to be able to do that. I think that's a great use. And look, it's an M1. I got a 2 terabyte M version. Yeah. I was thinking this is going to be a pro device.
Well, let's see when they ship. So they're not going to ship it till October. Let's see where it is there, right? And see if you feel differently about it in a context where you're using it with an external pointing device. How are they doing?
Right.
And I believe that Apple thinks that this is a long game kind of thing, and that they're going to keep iterating on this. They better be, because if they ship what they've got with a few beta fixes and then abandon it, we all should complain about that, because it's a start, and a start means you keep going.
Right.
And Apple abandons so much of their technology after one iteration and doesn't look at it again for 3 years. And Stage Manager needs work, because the iPad still doesn't really click on a link to spawn a Safari window in Stage Manager, right? Like where does it open? Right. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's just not logical yet. They have to figure this stuff out.
I think it's also ugly. It's just the ugly blobs on the left of my window. I don't get it. It's just ugly. But that's...
You can move Windows over there and hide it, and that's what I do. It's like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Just leave over there.
Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Okay, that's good to know. So then then I don't have so many complaints about it taking up so much space. Yeah, and then you can swipe.
You can, and then if you move your cursor all the way over to the left, it'll do a little reveal.
Oh, okay.
And that's I think it's a much better interface.
Much better.
That should probably be the default.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to use, especially on a small iPad display, you don't want to waste screen real estate on your little.
That's a big gutter.
Not to mention the fact that there's a dock at the bottom, and now there's this other dock at the side, which is a real mixed metaphor. Like, how many different? Can we put ones at the top and the bottom too, and just work in the little postage stamp in the middle? Like, it's too many things. So having it auto show and auto hide is actually, I think there's a keyboard command to do it. I know there is on the Mac. I don't know if there is on the iPad.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at that. So maybe I'm just holding it wrong. That's possible.
It could happen. It happened.